every year I do a segment called My Biggest Sleeper Team in the NFL. Last season, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers. The year before that, it was the Pittsburgh Steelers again. And the year before that, 2019 or 2020, I believe it was the Denver Broncos. They ended up disappointing. But before that, it was the Buffalo Bills. So I pretty much have banked on all of these besides one team, which was Denver. But you look at the New Orleans Saints, I'm really surprised because you look at the over-under win totals. I've seen 7 or 8 wins for the Saints, and I'm kind of surprised because you look at what this team did last season. They were really solid when Jameis Winston was the starting quarterback. As a matter of fact, they were 5-2 until he went down with that injury against the Buccaneers. Now with Sean Payton retiring, even though this team did get better in the offseason in a sense, they did lose a couple of key pieces. Marcus Williams left for the Baltimore Ravens in free agency. You also lost Terron Armstead, your starting left tackle, to the Miami Dolphins. However, you did a really good job replacing those guys. You brought in Trevor Penning in this past year's NFL draft. He's going to end up being the future at left tackle for you. Then on top of that, Dennis Allen is going to be taking over at head coach in replace of Sean Payton, who recently retired. Now, Dennis Allen, this isn't his first ever head coaching gig. He was a former head coach of the Raiders a couple of years back from 2012 to 2014. Didn't have much success. Went 8-28 during his tenure there. However, it was a Raiders organization that at the time didn't have Derek Carr or Khalil Mack. They were still rebuilding. So now he has the opportunity to get another shot in a better situation with a way better team. And on top of that, him and general manager Mickey Loomis made sure that they did the best job possible when it came to making as minimum changes on the coaching staff. So this is pretty much the same coaching staff that Sean Payton had, albeit you have a couple of guys who may not have returned, but you still do have the majority of people on this staff who are with Sean Payton, and they wanted to keep that. They wanted to make sure they didn't have a big overhaul on the coaching staff. And I really like that because not only is that going to help Dennis Allen because he doesn't have to go out and do the interview process of trying to interview offensive coordinators and defensive coordinators and trying to figure out who he wants to bring in. You pretty much already have a staff in place that has been successful because you look at their offensive coordinator, Pete Carmichael. Pete Carmichael has been with the franchise ever since Sean Payton arrived in New Orleans back in 2006. He has called plays for the Saints the years 2011, 2012, and 2016. And all those years that Pete Carmichael has called the plays, he's been really excellent in that role. So you already have your offensive coordinator situation taken care of. I don't expect a drop in the offensive production, even though many people have been saying that, well, JT, the only reason Jameis Winston was good was because of the Sean Payton influence. I understand that. However, you have Pete Carmichael there. I don't really think anything's going to change offensively. I still expect the Saints to be one of the better offensive teams in the league. On top of that, you have to give a big round of applause to Saints general manager Mickey Loomis. Mickey Loomis probably had one of the greatest off seasons that we have ever seen out of an NFL general manager. Remember where this franchise was at the start of the off season. They were negative $75 million in cap space. And we were wondering how they were going to be able to even field a competitive football team. Well, some way, somehow, Mickey Loomis worked some magic. And the Saints went from being negative $75 million under the cap to having cap space around $12 million at the moment. Not only that, but even though they did lose some key pieces, they replaced Marcus Williams with Marcus May. Then you bring in Honey Badger in free agency. This defense looks really good. As a matter of fact, New Orleans potentially could have one of the best 3 defenses in all of the NFL this season. Then on the offense side of the football, the biggest concern for New Orleans was their wide receiver position. Well, you get Chris Olave out of Ohio State in this past year's NFL draft, and you sign Jarvis Landry. Now, we don't really know the status of Michael Thomas. Some reports say that he could play this year. Some reports are still saying that he's still progressing. However, even if MT doesn't suit up this year or it still takes him a while to get back, I think for New Orleans, if you are a Saints fan, you definitely have way more confidence in your receiving core going into this season compared to what you had last year, because last year things were really rough. Now, you did have Marquez Callaway, who I liked a lot. I'm hoping that he still has a pretty significant role in this offense. However, you still do have one of the best offensive lines in the league. Even though you did lose left tackle Terron Armstead and you don't really know what you're going to get out of rookie Trevor Penning, you still do have Andres Pete, center Eric McCoy, and right tackle Ryan Ramczyk. Then you have on the defensive side of the football, you got Cam Jordan, Marcus Davenport, Marshawn Lattimore, Paulson Adebo at corner, Bradley Roby, Deuce, Chancey Gardner-Johnson, and PJ Williams. So this defense has a lot of depth, a lot of talent at pretty much every single position. When it comes to the defensive line, when it comes to linebacker, you have Demario Davis, who is a top 5 linebacker in my opinion. You have Pete Warner. Then I didn't even know that the Saints signed Marcus May in free agency. I didn't get any news on it. Not too many people reported on it. I found out the Saints signed Marcus May this morning when I was looking at their depth chart, trying to figure out how I was going to talk about them in this video. So you look at New Orleans overall, this is one of the more talented teams in the NFC, and I'm really surprised that their win total or their over-under is only 8-7 games, because if you ask me, this probably would be my pick to win the NFC South over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who also are going through a coaching change as well. Todd Bowles is going to be taking over for Bruce Arians, who recently stepped down, who took a front office role. I look at New Orleans, this was the team who gave the Buccaneers a lot of fits. And then not to mention, when you had to play them without Sean Payton and Dennis Allen had to step up as the interim head coach, they won that game 9-0. So I look at the Saints. This is a team that definitely is getting overlooked by many people. A lot of people are going to say, well, JT, I don't trust Jameis Winston. Dude, Jameis Winston was having the best season of his career before he got injured. Okay, he had one of the best touchdown to interception ratios in the league. Let's not also forget that this is the same Jameis Winston that outplayed Aaron Rodgers week 1 of the NFL season. Jameis Winston was solid, and barring anything crazy, I expect Jameis Winston to pick up from where he left off last year. Despite the injury and whatnot, Jameis Winston is going to be fine. And yes, I am biased because I am a Jameis Winston fan. For those of you guys who don't know, Jameis Winston is my favorite player in the league, but I still have a lot of confidence in him. And you look at how effective Jameis Winston was last season, despite the fact that he didn't have the greatest group of wide receivers to throw the football to. Now you improve the wide receiver position and the offensive line is still really, really good. Then you have AK back in the backfield. This offense should still be fantastic. On top of that, it should be even better than what it was last season. Although you did lose Sean Payton, you have Pete Carmichael there. So the drop-off shouldn't really be that huge, if any, at all. I'm not really expecting the New Orleans Saints to have a drop-off offensively. If anything, their offense should be a lot better. And not only is their offense going to be better, but their defense is going to be even better. Because remember, when Jameis Winston ran down, the Saints were going through quarterback. You had Ian Book, you had Trevor Siemian, and the offense was kind of struggling to really get anything going. So the defense had to come on the field for a little bit more plays than what they would have liked to, and they still were able to get big stops. So if this defense was able to be that good last season, considering how many plays they had to come on the field, imagine how good this defense is going to be this season when now they're actually going to have a little bit more time to rest on the sidelines versus having to come back on the field after the offense going 3 and out or turning the football over. If you're a Saints fan, you should be really excited about this team. Now, when it comes to the Super Bowl conversation, I think you're making a different argument because we haven't really seen first-year head coaches make it to the Super Bowl in recent memory. I'm not saying that Dennis Allen couldn't be the first of this decade to do that. However, I'm not expecting this team to be competing for the Super Bowl this year. I do expect them to make it to the playoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised if they end up winning this division. Because you look at Tampa Bay, yes, Tom Brady is returning and whatnot, but the Saints have had the Buccaneers numbers over the last couple of seasons, and no team plays the Buccaneers better than New Orleans. And Dennis Allen is a big reason for that, because he normally has really good defensive game plans. He gets pressure on Tom Brady. He also is pretty good when it comes to making Tom Brady make mistakes, which is something that we don't really see that often. Tom Brady is one of the smartest quarterbacks in the league. So Dennis Allen definitely has Tom Brady's number. And although he hasn't had success in the past as a head coach, this is a different situation. We've seen plenty of head coaches fail at one spot and then go on to be really successful at the next spot. And general manager Mickey Loomis did a really good job of putting the necessary pieces for Dennis Allen to be successful. With the Raiders, he didn't have the pieces that he has right now. Sometimes you can be a good coach, however, you don't get a chance to show it because you don't have all of the necessary pieces around you. Then you got to remember, the Raiders at the time were one of the worst organizations in the league. They still are one of the worst organizations in the NFL despite making it to the postseason. This is New Orleans. This is one of the best and most well-ran franchises that we have in this league. So Dennis Allen has a really great coaching staff, one of the best coaching staffs in the league. He has a really good front office behind him and one of the best teams in the NFC. So if he fails, I'm going to be extremely surprised, because there's really no excuses for him. If you go and you look at this roster, there's not too many weaknesses. Now, there are question marks, but there aren't really any big question marks. The only major question marks you're probably going to have are, okay, Trevor Penning, when he was coming out, he was more viewed as a developmental offensive tackle prospect, somebody who probably would have to sit for a year or two and develop. But if you go to the right team and with the right scheme, you're good enough to start right away. I think Trevor Penning should have a pretty solid rookie year. He may struggle from time to time, but overall, I don't think he's going to struggle too bad that he's just going to have to end up being benched or whatnot. I think he should be pretty solid there. And like I mentioned earlier, with the Jameis Winston doubters, remember, he had, at the time before he got injured, this team at a 5-2 record, on top of the division along with the Buccaneers, and he was about to have a career game against the Buccaneers. I just saw it in his eyes. He threw a touchdown before he got injured, by the way, also. So you look at Jameis Winston is going to be fine. That's pretty much the main big reason that people don't believe in the Saints this year, because I kind of feel like if you are a Saints fan, you probably have bigger areas of concern when it comes to Dennis Allen versus Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston is going to be okay. Dennis Allen, how good is he going to be when it comes to managing the clock? How good is he going to be in late game situations? How good is he going to be in one possession games? What decisions is he going to make? Knowing when to go for it on fourth down, when to kick a field goal. Those are going to be the kind of situations that I'm going to be having a really big eye on when it comes to Dennis Allen. But from a roster standpoint, this probably is the most talented team, or at least one of the most talented teams in not only the NFC, but in the NFL. And if the Saints miss the postseason, it's going to be on Dennis Allen, in which I expect them to make a coaching change immediately, because there's no excuses for why this team should not be in the playoffs. And then imagine if Michael Thomas is able to come back and he does play. Oh my goodness, this team is going to be something special. So don't sleep on the New Orleans Saints this season. I think that this team is the biggest sleeper team in the NFL heading into the upcoming year. And the only team that I have only missed on has been the Denver Broncos back in 2020. But it's not like we all weren't drinking the Kool-Aid on the Denver Broncos. We were all excited about what Drew Lock could do after having a pretty solid rookie season in the first couple of games that he played in. Nobody was expecting him to kind of stink it up the way he did. So you look at Denver, that's the only team I've really been wrong on. So I have a pretty good eye when it comes to spotting sleeper teams that could end up being really good. And I think the Saints could definitely be that good. You have Pete Carmichael as your OC, been really good as a play caller in the past. He's going to be the guy who's going to be taking over for Sean Payton as the play caller. Then on the defensive side of the football, you have two co-defensive coordinators. You have Chris Richard and Ryan Nelson. And I think that these guys have pretty good chemistry. They used to play college ball back at USC. So I think the defense is also going to be really good. On top of that, Dennis Allen is probably also going to have a little bit of an influence when it comes to game plan and whatnot, and overlooking and overseeing what happens on defense. So the defense is still going to be really good. If not, it should improve with the fact that the offense is going to be a lot better, and it's going to give the defense more time to rest. So let me know how you guys feel about the New Orleans Saints down in the comment section down below. Do you guys feel like the New Orleans Saints are the biggest sleeper team heading into the upcoming NFL season? Let me know down in the comment section down below if you're watching this on YouTube.